ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the 16th lesson for grammar. Alhamdulillah, we're 8 weeks in and already on our 16th lesson out of 20. We're going to start off today's lesson just with a quick reminder that one of the key and important messages we'd previously given out was it's really important to start making groups to talk about the deen, to talk about what you've learned so far, to help in retention of what you've learned, and also to start with the propagation of what we've learned already. And something small, 3 to 7 people, and just start revising the course, whether it's one lesson per week, meeting at the masjid, meeting at each other's houses, just to keep the location changing so it doesn't get stale. And you can see how the lessons that we're going through in these classes are really small, about 3-4 minutes each. And then just doing it. There's so many different ways you can do it. Even doing it in a WhatsApp group is really effective. Short 5-10 minutes time for everybody. Make those groups small. At least have 5 to 10 brothers and sisters in there, just so that you can get people involved. I assure you, the first step is the hardest, but every step gets easier from there. Alhamdulillah, and with our dua and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's grace and mercy, it becomes much easier. And the final reminder we say, where we can always allocate time towards work, family, studies for school, sports, anything. Let's try and make a little bit of allocation of time towards deen and understanding it better. Now, alhamdulillah, in today's lesson, we're going to be going over the fi'l, or the verb, and the category of words, and the subcategory is going to be the amar, or the command form that we talked about, and nahi is just the negative of a command. We're going to go over 4 examples, inshallah. Ansuru, adhkuru, a'budu, which is very relevant for today's class, and akhlaq, inshallah. Now, how are we going to learn the class? We're going to learn grammar through TPI, total physical interaction. What is it and how do we use it? We engage all of our senses. We start by hearing with our ears, seeing with our eyes, thinking with our brain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us with, say it with our mouth, show it with our hands, love it with our heart, and do it together as a group, inshallah. A gentle reminder or suggestion, please, for those of you that are doing this at home, please, as a group, please encourage one another to do the TPI, correct one another if you see that there's some that's incorrect. And for those of you that are doing this individually at home, please do it together. We can do it as a group virtually as well. Now, a quick revision, inshallah, for this class, as we always do, just again, remember we talked about the cycle of forgetting and revision and how it's always good to revise, so we're just going to do it here. So we talked about in the Arabic language, words typically come in 3 forms. So you have your nouns or isms like we're used to, that we've gone over. And the top left, you'll see the al that you see. When you want to go from a common noun to a specific or particular noun, like saying car and that car or the car, you would add al in there. And you can see in the top, we have the tanween, the fatha, damma, tin, kasra, tin, the 2. And underneath that, you can see the waw, noon, ya, noon, alif, ta. That's when we're going from singular to plural form. Underneath, we have fi'l or verbs that we're used to, and we're going to talk about the different forms. And we talk about the last one, which is harf, which joins either verbs or nouns together. Now, we've been focusing on fi'l or verbs for the last few weeks, just because it's very common in the Quran, and it's good to understand stories of people that have already happened in the past for us to learn from, or commandments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us. Now, we said that in the Arabic language, verbs typically are made up of 3 letters or root letters. And of those 3 letters, they follow 4 different patterns. And what we mean by that is 4 different patterns of punctuation, where it goes from the different types of verbs. We talked about the madi, which we're going to, mudari, or the amr form. And those 4 patterns were for fa'ala, fataha, nasara, and daraba, which we've gone over, and I'm going to keep going, inshallah. Now, the 3 types of verbs that I just mentioned, there's the madi, or something that already happened in the past. There's the mudari, something's happening now or will happen in the future, or the imperfect tense, and the command form, or the amr form, which is a forceful command. We went over the word fa'ala. So in the 3 different forms, so you'll see on the right-hand side, we see the madi, past tense. Middle column, we see the mudari, the imperfect tense. And on the left-hand side, we see the command, or the amr tense. So fa'ala, fa'alu. Remember, I keep saying this over and over again. For the madi, the past tense, the pattern is when you come down to the third line, it's ta, tu, tum, na. So fa'al ta, fa'al tu, fa'al tum, fa'al na. You did, I did, you all did, we did. And then in the middle, we have the mudari. So remember that for the TPI with the Maldi, it's down here. Mudari, we're going up because it's in the future, right? It could happen in the future. So you're pointing a little bit higher so you understand. And it's the beginning part of the word that changes. يفعلوا يفعلون تفعلوا أفعلوا تفعلون and نفعلوا. And then lastly, just a reminder on the left hand when we did the amr, the command forms, there is the TPI, remember, it's when you're being told to do. The amr form, it's straight up and down. One finger if it's singular, four if it's plural. So it's if'al, to do, if'alu, all of you do. And a quick correction here. I was corrected yesterday by Dr. Zafar. Jazakallahu khair for that. The nahi form of the negative command, it's not from the left to right. It's actually from the left to the right. I was going in the opposite form. So you start on the left-hand side. And if it's a singular where you're telling someone, don't do, la taf'al, left to right, across. And if you're telling a group of people, four fingers out, la taf'alu, don't do all of you, you go across. Starting on the left, go across. So that's a quick recap. We did the same thing, alhamdulillah. One thing we said, there's hundreds of words in this pattern. And imagine if this is a command that you've been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, imagine the benefits of it if we can identify it while we're reading. Where we read that Quran and there's a verse that says, for example, iqra, read, or qul, say. It's very different when you're reading it in a passive form or if you don't even understand, or when you're reading it and you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you to say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding you to do, to read, to do X, Y, and Z. Of course, you're going to stand up a little bit straighter. You're going to read this and you're going to feel that impact. This is not a book from about someone else's life. This is not this. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanding me, commanding you, commanding all of us when we read this, inshallah. So we went over fa'ala in the amr form. We also went over fataha in the amr form, which turned into iftah, iftahu, la tiftah, la tiftahu for all of you. Again, this is just some reminder. And the last one we did was ij'al. Excuse me, that was from the word ja'ala, to make. Ij'al, ij'alu, la taj'al, la taj'alu, don't make all of you. Now, alhamdulillah, that's the quick recap. I just want to go over them slowly because inshallah, this week's, today's lesson is very, very similar. Nothing new monumental that we're going to be building on it. A quick recap as well that we didn't put in here. If you remember, we said the word sawfa and sa. We added sawfa, which means soon. So if you were to add a time frame to something, so if you were to say fa'ala or if'al, do, the answer would be af'alu, and you could say sawfa af'alu, soon I will do. And we also said that if you were to make it even more, you want to emphasize just how quickly you're going to do it, you only add the letter sin, which you would say sa. So sa'afalu. It's almost as if you don't have enough time to complete the word sawfa, so you can only say one letter. So that's a full recap from last lesson, alhamdulillah. So in today's class, we're going to be going over ansuru, which is the amr form of the word nasara, which means to help. Remember we said nasara, nasaru, he helped, they helped, nasarta, nasartu, nasartum, nasarna, you helped, I helped, you all helped, we helped, right? Now we're going to be doing the amr form of this, or the command. So for help, if you were to tell someone to help, you would say unsur. Watch the fingers up and down. Unsur for help, you're talking to one person. Unsuru, help you all when you're talking to someone. Now if you were to do the opposite and tell them don't help, if someone's doing something bad, for example, then you say la tansur, don't help. And la tansuru, don't help if you're speaking to a group. With Nasr Bhai's help, we'll just recap this one more time so inshallah it commits to memory a little bit better. And please repeat at home as well. So when you say unsur,
help.
Jazakallah. Unsuru,
help all of you.
La tansur,
don't help.
La tansuru,
don't help all of you.
Jazakallah khair. Now here again, you can see the three different forms of the verbs. Now alhamdulillah, I find these tables to be very, very helpful because you can see the patterns emerging. On the right hand side, you'll see again the madi, the past tense. You see how it's only the last letters that are changing, one or two letters that are being added in if it's singular or plural, but the beginning part stays the same. Remember, we talked about that example of a car coming or an airplane taking off. If it's already gone, it's in the past. You turn back, you're only going to see the tail lights, or you can see the tail of that plane, right? So that's why the ending part of the word changes. In the middle, we're talking about the mudari or the imperfect tense, and that could be happening right now. So the car or the plane is coming at you, and you can see the beginning part of that word is what's changing. So it turns into yansuru, yansuruna, tensuru, ensuru, tensuruna, nensuru. And you see how the beginning part of the word is what's changing. And lastly is the emir form, which we just went over, ensuru, ensuruna. La from the left hand side, la tensur, la tensuruna. So I would highly recommend coming back to these tables while you're doing your grammar revision, and then you can see just how the same word, three root letters, nun, sin, ra, can be expressed in these different ways. When I was younger and I'd read the Quran, I was never able to identify that same word, let's say nasara would be the same as ansuru or yansuru. I would just think that they're different words. But subhanAllah, by knowing that verbs come in three root letters, you're able to identify this a lot more and grasp the Quran a lot better. Now, in terms of spoken Arabic, let's just get an example going so we can better understand the word. So if we were to ask the question, or sorry, not ask the question, if we were to make the command in the Amr form of ansur, help, the answer would be
Ansuru, I help.
ansuru. Now, if we're speaking to all of you as a group, ansuru, help, all of you help.
Unsuru and nansuru, we help.
We help. Jazakallah. Now we're going to add our friend Zaid again. Remember we talked about if it's a passive form, that's going to have the double fatha. If it's in the doer form, the active, etc., we'd add the fathatin, the matin, sorry. So if we were to ask or make the command of ansur Zaydan, help Zaid, what would we say?
Sorry, Zubair. Unsuru Zaydan, right? Unsur Zaydan.
Sorry, unsur Zaydan.
Yeah, so Sofa Ansuru Zaydan.
Now,
Soon,
all of you, let's all of us help Zaid. Unsuru Zaydan.
Sofa Nansuru Zaydan. Soon we will help Zayd.
Jazakallah. Now, alhamdulillah, we're done with that. Now, on to the next word, which is udhkur, which means remember. Now, remember the root word for this, dhakara. So now it turns into udhkur. With the command, you can see we add the alif at the beginning for them. And for the nahi, we add la for don't saying, and we add the ta. So udhkur is remember. Udhkuru is remember, you all. La tadhkur, don't remember. Again, if it's something bad for you, don't remember it. And if you're speaking to a group, la tadhkuru, don't remember, you all. Now, we'll just repeat this one more time. SubhanAllah, it's come in the Quran just under 50 times. So as a reminder, if you were to say the word udhkur, the meaning is?
Remember.
Udhkuru.
Remember all of you.
La tadhkur.
Don't remember.
And la tadhkuru.
Don't remember all of you.
Jazakallah khair. Now again, similarly, we've put all the three different tenses for the same word here, where you can see the madi, mudari, and the amr form. Now, I'm just going to go over them very, very quickly because I think we have the luxury of time right now. But just be mindful, I would really highly recommend that you keep these tables here when you're reviewing your grammar. And also, if you're having trouble identifying the patterns that we talk about between madi, mudari, and amr forms, take this table and just look at it, and you'll be able to identify the ending is what's changing. So it's dhakara, dhakaru, he remembered, they remembered, dhakarta, dhakartu, you remembered, I remembered, dhakartum, dhakarna, you all remembered, and we remembered. And if we were to go up for the mudari tense, is yadhkuru, yadhkuruna. So you see the beginning is changing. He remembers or will remember, and they remember. Tadhkuru, adhkuru, you remember, I remember. Tadhkuruna and nadhkuru, you all remember and we remember. And in the amr form is adhkuru, adhkuru, sorry, أذكر أذكروا. So remember and remember you all. لا تذكر لا تذكروا. Don't remember or don't remember you all. Now, in spoken Arabic, if you were to ask, if you were to take an example here, so if you heard the command, "Udhkur," remember, the answer or response here would be,
سوف أذكر. Soon I remember.
now as a group, "Adhkuru," all of you remember.
سوف نذكر. Soon we remember.
Jazakallah. So you can see here how the response is "Adhkuru," "Nadhkuru," because you're replying back in the active form, right? It's us. So it's soon I will remember, soon we will remember. While you're doing these responses, try it with the TPI as well. You'll see that it becomes a lot more intuitive and second nature. Now, let's add someone in here, all right? Now we're talking about remembrance. Forget about our friend Zaid for a bit, especially in this example here. Who should we remember or what should we remember? The best thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-dhikr. So if we were to say, "Udhkur Allah," remember Allah, the response would be,
سوف أذكر الله. Soon I remember Allah.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah, I mean for all of us. Now as a group, "Adhkur Allah," remember all of you Allah.
سوف نذكر الله. Soon we will remember Allah.
Jazakallah khair. Now, a quick reminder, you're gonna see a lot of the grammar now just gonna be revision and reminders of what we've already done. Alhamdulillah, we've gotten the foundation, the building blocks already ready. So here are the 4 different styles of verbs that we talked about. On the right-hand side, the first column, you're gonna see it is the Madi tense. In the middle, it is the Mudari tense. And on the left-hand column, it is the Amr, the command form. So you see the 4 different styles are Fataha, Nasra, Daraba, Sami'a. And the difference between them is how the punctuation changes, the Fatha, Damma, Kasra, from one form to the next. And here, remember, you may have noticed that we're using the same words when we're talking about a specific type of tense. And that's just so we can give you a holistic picture, a holistic example of how these style of verbs are. And inshallah, you'll be able to identify the same patterns with different verbs as well, and then know exactly where to place that verb. So you can see with Fataha, we also have Fa'ala and Ja'ala that follow the same pattern. With Nasra, we had Khalaqa, Dhakara, and Abada, which follow the same pattern. Alhamdulillah. So we're there so far. Inshallah, we're going to add some more words for the last 2 patterns, inshallah, in the next coming classes. So as part of homework, inshallah, there's the word U'bud, or worship. Now, alhamdulillah, we've already gotten a primer for a lot of our homework from today's class with Nasr Bhai, which is U'bud means worship, you're being told to. U'budu is worship you all. La ta'bud, don't worship. And la ta'budu, don't worship you all. Now we're going to go over this one just because it's part of homework, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, it'll help. And I'd like it if you did. Similarly, we have our table here on the right-hand side with Madi, in the middle is Mudari, and then we have the Amr, the command forms at the end. You can see the same exact patterns. A'bud, Abada, he worshipped. Abadu, they worshipped. Abadta, you worshipped. Abadtu, I worship. Abadtum, you all worship. Abadna, we worship. Ta, tu, tum, na. Now in the Mudari tense, hand going up. Ya'budu, ya'buduna, he worshipped, they worshipped. Ta'budu, a'budu, you worshipped. You worship, I worship. Ta'buduna and na'budu, you all worship and I worship, or we worship, sorry. And then in the command form, it's u'bud, u'budu, worship or worship you all. La ta'bud, la ta'budu, don't worship you all. So you'll see it's the same pattern, subhanAllah. Nothing new, nothing fundamentally new is going to change. And one more piece of homework is for the word khalaqa, which turns into akhluqu. Create is akhluqu. Akhluq, apologies. And akhluqu is create, you all. La takhluq, don't create. And la takhluqu, don't create, you all. We'll go over this one more time with Nasr Bhai's help. So if we were here, the command ukhluq,
create.
Ukhluqu,
create all of you.
La takhluq,
don't create.
And لا تخلقوا.
Don't create all of you.
جزاك الله خير. Same, we have our table here. I'm just going to go over it one more time. So it turns from خلق, he created, خلقوا, they created. خلقت, خلقت, you created and I created. خلقتم, خلقنا, you all created and we created. So you see that pattern? Ta, tu, tum, na. This is for the Madi form of verbs. Now in the mudari or the imperfect tense in the middle, hand goes up. يخلق, يخلقون, he creates, they create. تخلق, أخلق, you create, I create. تخلقون, نخلق, you all create and we create. Now, billah, of course, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. And the command form is أخلق, أخلقوا, create or create you all. لا تخلق, لا تخلقوا, don't create or don't create you all. Now, like I just said, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who creates, he's the creator, we won't practice the amr form or the command form because it's only reserved for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, alhamdulillah, that's done with our grammar. So we've gone over the 4 words for today. And as always, we'll finish up with a quick learning tip. And the learning tip for this lesson is just to learn with examples. It's the easiest way. It helps with association of the words and committing it to memory. An example here would be, do we know a meaning of the word in? Do we have an example that we can associate this with? Something we may be saying for, well, quite some time, but we may not be cognizant or aware of the exact meaning of what we're saying. An example here is inshallah. We say inshallah, inshallah, we say inshallah many times throughout the day whenever we're talking about something we will do or something that will happen in the future, or when we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. And the meaning of that word is if Allah wills. Now, the best way to remember the meaning of in is by remembering the term inshallah, things we're already familiar with. And now we know that whenever we heard the word in, we know that in English means if. So it's the best way to do it, right? It's through examples. So sometimes, even if you forget the example, there are chances you may not forget the meaning or get confused with them. So if you keep your example in mind, then inshallah, then you'll be able to remember the meaning of inshallah and its meaning. So sometimes there may be a point where you don't need to remember the example, and inshallah, that's when you start memorizing the meanings of each one of the words. But to get there, it helps to have these examples with you and just help with commitment to memory, inshallah. So the idea here is that if you can remember the examples, you'll be able to memorize them much faster. You'll retain them for much longer because it's already there. You'll be able to recall them from memory because, again, it's already there. It's understanding what you know. And you won't mix up the words with the meanings, inshallah, ya Rab. So alhamdulillah, that caps off our grammar lesson number 16. By the end of this lesson, we've already learned 194 words, alhamdulillah, that have been repeated in the Quran over 38,500 times. Subhanallah, that's a very, very significant amount of words we've come through in a very, very short period of time, alhamdulillah. So in order to retain that information, that the knowledge that we've already learned, alhamdulillah, our humble suggestion and advice is here to do the homeworks. Start by making the dua. Pray for yourself. Pray for the rest of your classmates, your instructors, your families, everyone. That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to understand and memorize the Quran and implement it in our lives. Do the homeworks that we've been doing through the other classes, which is 2 on tilawat, some from memory, some from the mushaf. Reading the 2 on the study materials, which is the book and the vocab, pocketbook that we shared. Listening, just concise word for word translations of the Quran, and really listen to this grammar lesson since they're already uploaded to YouTube. Talk about the course, which is what we started off our lesson with today. Talk about it with other people, help you commit this to memory, to remember it, and also it may help them. They may tell you things that you have forgotten as well. So it's a good safety net to ensure for this. And recite different surahs in the Quran. Alhamdulillah, now through these 16 lessons, we've gone through a few surahs. And these are common ones that we're reciting in our salah. Recite them, feel that meaning, commit that meaning to memory, and then commit that to your heart, inshallah. Inshallah, then that will translate into your actions thereafter. So similarly, we always emphasize the pocketbook and the vocab sheet, which is there. Last point we're going to keep going on and on about is the best way to teach, to learn. Every time I go through these lessons, alhamdulillah, something else triggers. and I get a better or deeper understanding for one of the lessons here. Download the PowerPoint, download the videos, listen to them, start teaching. Doesn't have to be informal, a formal setting. It doesn't have to be through a big group of people. It could be one-on-one. You could be teaching your child, you could be teaching your neighbor, you could be teaching your brother, your sister, anybody, your spouse. Just start by talking about it. There's tons of training material available online at understandquran.com as well. Now we'll wrap this up with our dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to recite, understand, ponder, implement, propagate, and memorize the Quran. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan.